Hey everybody, it's Chris Widener from the Chris Widener Speakers Academy. And today I want to talk to you about how to guarantee an amazing keynote speech. Before I tell you about that, I want to tell you about the Chris Widener Speakers Academy. You can join us at wideneracademy.com. I've got 45 of the top speakers of all time teaching as faculty. Together, we've made $1 billion in the speaking business. I don't know why you'd buy anything else, honestly. It makes no sense why anybody would buy any other program, especially these programs that charge you $15,000 for 6 weeks of group coaching to talk about one thing. With the Widener Academy, the Chris Widener Speakers Academy, you get 45 speakers talking about the entirety of the speaking business, and it's incredible. Go to wideneracademy.com and use save 10, all one word. Don't put a space in between. Save 10, the number 10, and you'll save 10% off the cost. All right, let's talk about how to create a killer keynote, how to guarantee you have an amazing keynote speech that everybody loves and gets you invited back and recommended and all those kinds of things. So, I've given 2,500 speeches in my life all around the world to crowds as large as 25,000 people. Done a lot of stadium events, 25,000, 15,000, 18,000, 10,000. But I've also done a lot of 25-person speeches as well. I've given free speeches, and I've been paid as much as $35,000 to come and talk for an hour. So I know a little something about how to create an amazing keynote. In fact, if you want to see my keynote, go to YouTube and search Chris Widener, How to Be Successful. And you can see my keynote. It's a 37-minute speech that I gave at the Success Magazine Symposium. So you can take a look at that. All right, let's talk about it. So an amazing keynote starts long before you ever begin to speak on stage. It's true. When you think about an amazing keynote, you're really thinking about the response that the crowd has to you, right? Because they're the ones that will decide whether it's amazing or not. You don't get to decide whether it was amazing or not. The crowd gets to decide whether it was amazing or not. So giving a speech and making sure that it's amazing is a lot like sales. You have to ask what they want, and then you give it to them. Ask what they want, and then give it to them. For example, if you were asked to give a speech at a funeral, you wouldn't show up and do some Tony Robbins thing, right? Whoa, you just wouldn't do that. It wouldn't fit. Nobody would think it was amazing, even if it was amazing, because what the crowd wants and what you give, what they want determines whether your speech is amazing or not. So let's talk about who needs to decide whether your speech is amazing or not and how it gets you rebooked. I just had a meeting planner, major, I don't know, probably Fortune 10 company. We just had a conversation following some speeches that I gave for them, sort of a debriefing, and they loved it. She said, I'm going to tell everybody about you in my company. I'm going to make sure. And the great thing is she runs all of the events for this company. I knew that she had to be happy. I knew that she had to like it. So let's talk about who needs to like it. First of all, the highest ranking executive in the room needs to like it. So what do? You talk to them before the event and you say, for example, and I do lots of pre-event interviews. This is key. Do a pre-event interview. Pre-event interviews will help you have an amazing speech. So I'll get the top executive on the line. Thanks for hiring me. Really appreciate it. Let me ask you, what is the one thing that you hope to come from this speech? What is the one message that you want to come through for this speech? What is it that you want me to accomplish on your behalf in this speech? And then shut up and listen. Then make sure you do it. Okay? If they say, I want them to know that our company loves them and supports them. Cool. If they say, I want them to know that times are tough and only the tough are going to, only the successful are going to keep their jobs and the rest of them are going to lose their jobs. Okay. Get that message across. You have to make sure that they're happy, because at the end, you don't want the senior executive in that room to go, this guy didn't do what I wanted him to do. This guy didn't do what we needed him to do. Can't believe we paid that guy $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, whatever you're getting. Can't believe we paid him for an hour because all he did. You want that guy to be successful. It's like the guy who goes onto the car dealer lot and says, and the salesman says, what are you looking for? And the couple says, we're looking for a little two-door red convertible. And the sales guy says, okay, come on over here. I have minivans in blue. They're going to be happy. So you got to find out what the senior executive is looking for. And I talk to them. I talk to them before. I talk to them during the speeches, not during the actual speech, but while I'm at the event. Just had this happen. The senior executive was an executive vice president, and got a chance to talk with her and just asked her, what is it that you're hoping for? What are you looking for? What do you want to have happen here? How can I, support the message here at the conference? And they'll tell you. And then you just weave it in. Second, people that you want to be happy are the meeting planners. Now, the meeting planners have to be happy because they're the ones that really stuck their neck on the line for you, right? You want them to be happy because, hiring a speaker, especially if they've never hired you before, it's an unknown, and it's like throwing the dice, right? There's a lot of people out there say they're great speakers. They've got demo videos, 4-minute long demo videos, and it's, 8 segments of, 30 seconds each, and it's the only 8 things they ever look good doing. The rest of their speech is boring, right? And so they hire them, and then they go, oh, wow. It's like in the movie you go to, the comedy, you see the previews and go, oh, that's going to be funny. And you show up and you realize the only funny parts were actually in the previews. You could have just watched the previews and gotten all the funny parts. You want to make sure that the meeting planner's happy. So you ask the same kinds of questions. What can I do to support your mission? How can I, what things would you like me to say? What kinds of things would you like me to get across? What's the key themes? Those kinds of things, right? Now, here's another thing to help you become an amazing speaker and to give amazing keynotes. You must abide by their schedule. In fact, I just gave these 2 speeches for this major corporation, and the MC is a professional MC, one of the top MCs in the world. I follow him on Instagram, and the guy's booked more than any speaker I know. I mean, he's from here to there. I mean, all over the world. And he got up after my second speech, and one of the highest compliments I ever received from a speaking professional. He got up and he said, folks, you just saw one of the best speakers I've ever seen in my life. And of course he was funny, and of course he gave us great content. But do you know what impressed me the most? When our countdown clock hit 0, he spoke his last word. That's a professional. And folks, that is a professional. Don't go 15 minutes. You could have the best speech in the world. And if you go 10 minutes over, all anybody's going to be thinking is, who is this guy? Who does this lady think she is? Going on and on and on. And your amazing speech is no longer an amazing speech. It's a arrogant, selfish, egotistical person standing up there who doesn't care about the needs of the conference and only cares about them getting the glory for an extra 10 minutes. End on time. Start on time, end on time. In fact, here's what I always tell people. Somebody will say, we're going to hire you for an hour. Then let's say they're 15 minutes late. I was supposed to start at 10:30 and now it's 10:45. I will say to the meeting planner right before I go on, literally within minutes, okay, you hired me for an hour, but I know we're 15 minutes behind. Would you like me to still speak for an hour, or would you like me to end at the time you originally wanted me to end? About half the time they say, yeah. Boy, if you could shorten it to 45 and end on there, that would get us back on track. Perfect. Easy. Or if they say, oh, no, you know what? We kind of built in a little bit of lag time with some breaks and stuff. We want you to go for the full hour. Done. But no matter what they tell you, do it. That will make your speech amazing to them. The last one that you want to do before you even give your speech, and I do this regularly, I will ask the meeting planner, can you give me the names of 3 to 5 people, names and email addresses and phone numbers of 3 to 5 people who will be in the audience from a cross-section of your company. So the highest people, the middle people, and the lowest people. And I'd like to do a 15-minute interview with them and just talk to them a little bit about what they're going through, what their needs are, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll go into those meetings, and they'll usually send out an email, hey, Joe, Susie, Tom, Dick, and Harry, this is our speaker. He'd like to spend 15 minutes with you. Please arrange time to talk to him. And I'll get on the phone and I'll talk to him. And I just ask him questions. What are your biggest challenges? What would you like to learn? You know who's going to be in that room. What do you think is the message that the people in that room need to hear? And here's the fascinating thing. Having done this for 20-something years, you will hear one thing come from everybody's mouth. There'll be one thing. They'll all say 5 or 6 things. There'll be one thing that will hit each level. You know what one thing goes into my speech? That thing. Because I know that those people in that room then need that. And I'll weave that in. So those are 3 people: the highest level executive, the meeting planner, and the people in the room. You want to make sure that you know what it is that they're looking for. Because if you just show up and do your dog and pony show and nobody's interested in it, nobody's going to think you're amazing. All right, so let's talk about when you show up and you give the speech. A couple of things. First of all, you want to be energetic. You want to have energy, but you want the energy to be appropriate to you. And I say this because you could have a Tony Robbins guy, whoa, come on, yeah, which is not my thing at all. I don't get it. I don't get why people like to go to those things. Nothing against Tony. He's obviously the biggest, best speaker of all time in terms of the size of his business and reach. I just don't get it. I don't need to go dance around a thing, but some people love it. They come away going, that was the best thing I ever went to. Cool. Now, Jim Rohn gave Tony Robbins his first job. You know that? When Tony was 17 years old, he went to work giving speeches, selling tickets to Jim Rohn seminars. If Jim Rohn showed up and went, all right, everybody, it wouldn't work. And then I spent the last 7 years of Jim Rohn's life with him and have had a wildly successful speaking career. And neither one of those, bookends of energy. This is Jim Rohn. If he's really showing some energy, this is Jim Rohn's like total energy move. He'll take off his glasses. Like, that's really a lot of energy that Jim would give, right? Jim didn't prance the stage like Tony does. Tony goes out in the audience. I move around a little bit. So there's energy for Jim, there's energy for Chris, and there's energy for Tony. And you need to find what's appropriate for you. So you got to give the right kind of energy that matches your feel and who you are and that kind of stuff. Second thing that I would say is don't try to cram too much into it. Make three or maybe 4 points. I always tell people, I'm going to give you a lot of stuff here today, but I want you to get one that will change your life. If some of them you'll go, oh yeah, I already got that. I already know that. I'm good at that. It's the one that will change your life. And that's the one that I'm talking about. So narrow it down. Make those 4 points really, really, really good. I have 4 points in my speech and then lots of stories around them. But 4 points. Make 4 points, and that'll help you. Don't go overboard. Stories. I mentioned stories. You want to tell lots of stories. People love stories. The best speakers of all time, storytellers. The greatest speaker of all time, the most famous human being of all time, the one who had the most impact of all time, Jesus. Regardless of whether you believe in Jesus or not, we do know one thing. He did most of his teaching via stories. In fact, there was a study done even recently where they took the amount of money that speakers got paid, and then they listened to like 20 different speakers, and they found, then they listened to each of those speakers. They ranked them by how much they made and by what percentage of their keynote was storytelling. And except for one outlier that got flipped around in there somewhere, it was probably Brian Tracy, because Brian doesn't tell a lot of stories. Brian is an amazing speaker, by the way, but he's not a keynoter. But he's more facts and figures and those kinds of things. But they found that to a person, except for one person out of the 20, to the degree that they told more stories, they made more money. And the number one was Zig Ziglar. It was like 80% of his speech was stories. And at the time, he was making $100,000 a speech. I think perhaps the only non-celebrity making $100,000 a speech. So you want to tell stories. So you make that point, and then you tell stories about it to sort of elicit emotion and laughter and those kinds of things from people. I also want to add in one other thing here. If you can, don't use PowerPoint. People always ask me, so are you going to use PowerPoint? Nope, not going to use PowerPoint. You're not going to use PowerPoint? Nope, not going to use PowerPoint. Oh, wow, good. It's just one less thing to worry about. Besides, everybody else is going to have PowerPoint. Here's what I always tell people. Greatest speeches of all time, no PowerPoint. Could you imagine the I Have a Dream speech by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. with a PowerPoint? I have a dream. And you'll see on slide 1 here, the first part of that dream. Could you imagine JFK's speech? I've got 2 slides. The first slide is going to give you one thing to think about. The second one is a second thing to think about. The first one is to ask not what your country can do for you. Now let's talk about that and extrapolate that for a moment. And then slide 2, but instead ask what you can do for your country. You would never have gone that way. Could you imagine Jesus' Sermon on the Mount? I've got 7 things to say to you. First, blessed are the peacemakers. Let's talk about peacemakers for a moment. You don't need PowerPoint. We are speakers. If you're good, you don't need PowerPoint. Make this good. Be dynamic, be engaging, be thoughtful, be smart. Next one, be funny. You want to be funny. You want people to laugh. Now, again, there are people that are ha-ha, guffaw funny. I think of a guy like Andy Andrews. The guy is just funny. Guys like Tim Gard and, some of these professional speakers, really just funny guys. And then there's guys like Jim Rohn, dry sense of humor. My friend Bill Stainton, who talks about humor in the Academy. Again, WidenerAcademy.com, save 10 to save 10%. The Chris Widener Speakers Academy. Bill Stainton, 29 Emmys for humor. 29 Emmys. Who else has 29 Emmys? Bill does, and he is the interview for us when we're talking about humor in your speech. Really dry sense of humor. I love to listen to Bill talk, but he is not guffaw, honey. He's not slapping his knee and, priest and minister and rabbi walk into a bar. Not at all. He's funny, though. Dry sense of humor. Find your style, right? A couple other thoughts. Take them through a range of emotions. One of the ways that you're going to be amazing is to keep people's attention. The way you keep people's attention is you have to change things up for them mentally. If you just talk like this and your entire speech is just like this and all you ever do is just hit that range, then it's just right here the entire time with your tone of voice. And not only that, the only thing that you do is you just tell basic, boring stories. You don't have them think about anything that might be sad, or you don't have anything that might be funny. You're not going to be engaging, and pretty soon people go, wow, that's the worst thing ever. So sometimes you really want to be hyped up and talking like this, and then other times you want to just bring it down here like this. Sometimes you want to talk about things that are going to make people sad. Sometimes you're going to make people just think like, wow, I never thought about that. And other times you want them just laughing. To the degree that you can take people through a range of emotions, they are going to be in a place where they think that your speech is amazing. Because you're going to take them through that cycle, that roller coaster of emotions. And at the end, they're going to go, that was a wild ride. Could you imagine you got on a roller coaster, it just went like this? You get off and go, that was boring. But you do a roller coaster. You get off and you go, that was amazing. You're telling them, that was amazing. That was incredible. Can you believe that? Let's go again. That's what you want people to do. You want people to let's go again. Now, how do you close an amazing speech? A lot of different theories on this. I'll tell you how I do mine. By the way, my speech is amazing. I'll tell you that. You don't get to where I'm at by having a bad speech. In fact, they always say that the best marketing is a great speech, and I would agree. Best marketing is a great speech. Be great at what you do. The way that I end my speeches is I end on a thoughtful note. I will say, something thoughtful, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. I usually reconnect the 4 things that I taught them, and I'll say, hey, and if you do this, 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 then you will succeed at anything and everything that you set your mind to. Thank you so much. Appreciate having me here. Take care. And I'll see you soon. And then people come to their feet and they clap, clap, clap. There are people that try stunts. Like the last thing they do is they say, if you're this, then stand up, and then people will stand up and then go, I'm Joe Schmo. Thank you for coming. And they're like, I get a standing ovation every single time. Yeah, because you told them to stand up. They didn't stand up on their own accord. Anyway, we got some great stuff in the Academy on how to give great speech. We've got Delatoro McNeil, who runs a thing called Crush the Stage. Amazing. one of the top speakers in America today. And then we got Steven Shapiro also talking about how to do great speeches. So we've got 2 specific trainings on how to do great speaking. And I want to invite you again to join the Chris Widener Speakers Academy. Go to wideneracademy.com, use SAVE10, and you will save 10%. All right, take care, folks. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you over at the Chris Widener Speakers Academy. That's how to have an amazing keynote speech.